Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Brighton Podcast. It's your boy, Jamie G, joined by the man himself, Blessings Chubamba. Bless, how we doing, brother?
Yeah, good. Loving the intro as always. I feel a little bit lighter, to be honest, and I think it's because I've forgotten what happened at the weekend.
Yeah, I think it's
nice.
the more the days go on, we're slowly forgetting about what happened last week. We might have to relive it a bit on this episode of the podcast, but hopefully it'll just be a bit, and hopefully it's just a blip of a week, and then we can carry on and motor forward with, luckily, it's an FA Cup game as well, that we don't have to think about the league and where we are in the league and how we've lost another 3 points and where we stand. So not too bad for the FA Cup to come around after a 7-0 loss.
Yeah, definitely good time to play in a different competition. I mean, they say pain heals with time. So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm actually quite positive now. You never know. You could do Chelsea.
Well, let me bring you back down to earth, because let's be a bit more realistic. We are up against Chelsea, so great time for a different competition so we don't lose in the league, and great preparation for our next league game because we're playing Chelsea in back-to-backs. But I would like to take our listeners back to the Chelsea game from earlier in the season where we did lose 4-2 at Stamford Bridge, and Cole Palmer had potentially one of the best games I think I've seen played by anyone. And that might be including Messi in a Champions League game. So he scored 4. He could have assisted another 2 or 3 as well. We lost 4-2. Very convincing win. And that was the first moment I had. Don't know about you, Bless. I felt, yeah, we might not actually be competing for the Champions League. Or maybe we might be happy and lucky to be in the Europa League, because they absolutely battered us.
Yeah, I mean that was when we started, getting a little bit humbled by teams. I think before that it was amazing. Do you remember, there was talks of winning the Premier League. Do you remember we had a conversation about what we'd rather win, and yeah, we're just getting ahead of ourselves. So that game was a real humbling of just like where we actually are, because I think Veltman was out, so Adam Webster started, and yeah, the lack in depth in that area was shocking for us. And it was and I just remember talking about some of the goals, and it was just the same thing over and over and over. So yeah, that was a painful one, to be honest.
Yeah, that was Adam Webster's first start of the season, and I think maybe even his last start of the season, because I don't think he's played since. We've gone with Igor since, while Dunk was injured, and now we've unfortunately gone back to Dunk. But I digress. Yeah, some stats from that game. It was, like you say, they did it over and over and over again. They just beat us on the counter-attack. We played such a naive high line that Cole Palmer would thread a ball through, and Madueke and even Jackson and even Sancho, who doesn't have the best pace, were through every single time. And then we also gave them, so like our own mistakes cost us with Webster's back pass, and it was just a terrible game. I mean, the stats of this game of actually, like, you wouldn't think it's as bad as it was, because we had 60% of the ball. We had lots of shots on goal. We had 15. We matched them with 15. But it's the XG, which kind of paints a bit of a picture. Their XG was 4. And XG is a really hard number to get that high, because they give very blatant chances, like 0.3 XG. Theirs is 4. How many clear-cut chances must they have had in that game for them to actually batter us like that? And meanwhile, ours is 1. So that really just paints the picture of how bad we were that day. And I think that was where we started seeing, the welcome to the league for Hertzler came in that game. I felt that was like a big moment where it was like, you can't just continue playing this like stringent way of playing football with this high line, this high press, and you're going to have to adapt every now and then. And I think he's done that to an extent, but then last week happened and we're back to square one.
Yeah, that's it. I think when with the personnel missing, it was the first time we saw Hertzler's system without the sort of first choice personnel in certain positions, and it definitely got caught out so many times. And then from that, I think it's been quite tricky because he's been trying to adjust. We've seen changes in formation, changes in approaches in different games as well. If you throw you back to the Newcastle game, that was a completely different type
Yeah.
of Hertzler system. So it's been quite tricky to get back onto that consistent trend. I don't want to say he got found out in that game, but it certainly sort of suggests so, because previously before that we were in really good form, we were playing well, and then that game happened. He obviously doesn't want it to happen again, so he's tried lots of different things, and some things have worked and some things have not worked very well last weekend.
Yeah, you are right. Like, we were in good form. I think I've just had a little look. That's when we were drawing to Arsenal. Were unlucky to get a win. We had beaten Man United. We battered Crawley in the cup, which was Crawley, fair enough. But then, yeah, we had beaten Everton that first game of the season. The only one that was a bit sus, which is looking like a great result now. The week before we played Chelsea, we played Nottingham Forest, which was a 2-2. And we actually should have won that game. But we were actually probably pretty happy to get 1 point from that game, to be fair, looking back on it now, considering how good Nottingham Forest are and how much they battered us last week. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he plays coming like this weekend and how he adjusts his formation and personnel as well to counteract that Chelsea team, which we'll talk about after this quick ad break.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we've spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and let me tell you, Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, then check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
And we are back with a daily Brighton podcast. So, let's talk about Chelsea, because obviously it is an FA Cup game. This is a squad of Chelsea that has probably about 2 starting 11s, really. Like, I would say they're one of the deeper squads in the Premier League in terms of they're always constantly switching. So we've seen it in the Conference League that they've basically played a different 11 to their Premier League squad, and it's kind of happened, I believe, in the cup game, their last cup game, which they played Morecambe. They had a different lineup to what they would usually field in the Premier League. So, what kind of what formation and what personnel do you think they're going to play?
Yeah, I think with Chelsea, the system always stays the same. It'd be interesting to see who starts. I think there will be lots of changes, but not as many as the flip between Premier League and Conference League. I don't think, because they have trimmed down the squad a little bit with Vega leaving and Fofana injured, and I'm not sure if Trevor Chalobah is cup tied as well. So I think we will see some Premier League players in it, but it still will be rotated. It'll be interesting to see how they approach it, to be honest, because heavy rotation, I think Brighton would fancy it. But I guess it's the FA Cup, though. You got to take it a bit seriously. I think we will see mostly Premier League players in there.
Yeah, I think it's where it is the FA Cup. This is probably a competition that they're looking like they're thinking they can win as well, especially with the freshness of their players. They don't have much of a burden in terms of the Conference League is probably going to be theirs, even if they continue playing their B team, as it were. So it's probably another competition that they're looking at, thinking, we're going to have a fresher players when it comes towards the end than the likes of Liverpool, who have Champions League football and be playing like Real Madrid on a week in, week out, or like a Man City or a Bayern or the big stars. So it's probably a competition that they're thinking, yeah, we could come out pretty well in this and finish the season with a Conference League, which is, let's face it, not the best competition to win, but an FA Cup, that's one for the resume at least. So yeah, I think they will actually take this seriously, especially coming up against a Premier League club like Brighton. But I feel like we will see changes like Gooey, I think, will start over Jackson, and Shrewsbury Hall might get a start. Don't know what you think about that, because I think he played against Morecambe. He's played a lot in the Conference League. They brought him in for big money as well, and we were also linked with him. So it might be like a big FU to us if they play Shrewsbury Hall.
Yeah, no, definitely. The likes of Dewsbury Hall and Kunku will probably get on the pitch. Malagusto as well. Like these are decent footballers. Like it's not a second string
Yeah.
team really, if you think about it. I mean, like Nkunku cost what £60 million. Like obviously he's not been in great form and been spent a lot of time on the bench, but he can still cause issues. I think the last time he started in the Premier League, Chelsea won 5-0 against Southampton, and that was a rotated sort of Conference League team, if I recall well. So, yeah, I think whatever team they field, it's going to be a really good game, but too many changes for Chelsea. I think Brighton have really got to sort of fancy it and take the game to them and not respect them as much. I don't think it's worth doing that. I think Brighton have got the players to make it a game. Make it a game. Let's not make it a sort of whitewash sort of kind of result. Even if it was a Brighton loss, I think the aim is to make it an actual game. Make them work for it at least.
Yeah, I think especially coming off the back of last week, all we want to see as fans is them show some like desire and show a bit of balls to not take last week, not take last week to heart, and come out this week and actually put in a decent performance, because last week was embarrassing. So it's like all I'm looking for this game is kind of them to show me that they're interested to begin with. They come out with high energy and they will show at least some tenacity or resilience to actually take the game to Chelsea and be pressing them, even if we don't get the result or we don't qualify to the next round. I just want to see a good performance, especially coming off such a battering like last week.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. I think it's a big game. I think because of last week's result, Hertzler has to go with his strongest 11, whoever's available, and the fans are going to be expecting a reaction, especially at home at the Amex as well. The fans are going to be expecting a big reaction following last weekend's 7-0 loss, and that means that the players need to start well. I mean, yes, it's Chelsea, but Chelsea have not been the same for years. Like they're still so inconsistent, and you can still get at them. So, you know, I'm going to be at the game as well, so I'm expecting something. I'm expecting something good from Hertzler, and it's a massive challenge because it's a test of character as well. Like, what kind of manager is he? Is he gonna? Has he got that presence in the changing room to actually turn this around and actually lift those boys back up? Because 7-0 in the Premier League is embarrassing. I know we've touched on it many times, but it's a real challenge for Hertz to get them going again. If he can lift them back up and get them going, then that shows a good sign of what a top manager can actually looks like.
Yeah, and I think it is like you said earlier, Chelsea are a team that are quite inconsistent. They went through that really good purple patch, didn't they? Where it felt like they were winning every week. They got up to second in the league, and people were actually thinking, are they title contenders? Like, are they going to actually challenge Liverpool for the title? And then they just drop off. A draw to Everton, a loss to Fulham, a loss to Ipswich, a draw to Crystal Palace. We are a team in those likes where we can be a bit of a difficult team to play. We're not one of these better teams in the league, we could probably we're probably looking at those games against Fulham, against Crystal Palace, against Everton, thinking we can probably get a result here. That goes for both games that we come up against them as well, and that would be another test as well. Is seeing, well, it'll be a good example of how well we do in this game and what we can learn from this game to take into next week's game as well. We are going to be talking about Brighton after the break and going over ways that we can hopefully beat Chelsea.
This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day.
And we are back with a daily Brighton podcast. So, Bless, you mentioned a bit, do we make changes earlier? What changes do you see, or do you think, or what formation lineup do you think we'll start with against Chelsea this weekend?
Yeah, I think if I don't see two sort of sitting holding midfielders, I might actually ask for a refund and leave the stadium before kickoff. I mean, that would be criminal because we touched on Chelsea, and I'm pretty sure Cole Palmer will play, and he'll be in that area. If I just see if it's only Jack Hinchelwood again in that area, I genuinely think I'd ask for a refund on the spot because I do not want to witness another massacre, especially live in the flesh. I don't know. I've not really heard about Carlos Baleba, but we need him back. We need him desperately for this game. I think he's the key to sort of staying in the game and really battling against that midfield. You can definitely get along against that midfield as well, and a battle with him and Caicedo as well. That'd be a fascinating watch. But we need to be a bit more ruthless up front. So I'm expecting Rutte to start as well as Minte. I'm not sure what he'll do in terms of João Pedro and Welbeck. Matoma obviously on the left because we haven't got. I've got a Dingra. I don't think I'd be mad to see a Dingra starting over Matoma. I think that'll be okay, and then bring Matoma on just to shaken things up, freshen things up a little bit because it's a bit. You look on the right-hand side and you're like, Minte's great, but end product and it's just not really convincing in front of the goal. And then the other side, it's like, Matoma's amazing, dribbling pace, has a spark, but it just hasn't been clicking this season. So to freshen it up with a Dingra maybe on either side would be really good to see, I think.
Yeah, I think the last FA Cup game we played against Norwich, I was actually shocked by how strong the lineup Hertzler went for was. So he basically played the full starting 11 at that point. Obviously, you can throw in Enciso, who started, the Premier League game before this game. And then also Webster was in. That was only that Webster being in was the only one where I'd go, he's not really the starter. So it shows like Hertzler's clearly wanting to take this competition seriously. And when you do only play once a week for the most part, these competitions are a good chance for a club like us to really take seriously. I never understand when clubs don't take these kind of games seriously, when they're like mid-table teams, because this is a competition that your fans very much want to win. I would love to win the FA Cup, especially as like a mid-table random shout to win an FA Cup. And then we also get Europa League football through that way. Like, we don't have to go through the league if we do it like that. But yeah, I think in terms of the changes that you suggested, I think Matoma deserves to be benched based on last week's performance. Like, genuinely deadly serious. I think that should be like a statement. You're on the bench because your work rate last game was so bad.
Those contact lenses have rattled you, mate.
That's inexcusable to not go down and just walk off the pitch so the rest of you are playing with 10 men. Poor Tariq Lamptey had 3 men on him. Oh, Anya went, oh, right, he's gone off the pitch, has he? All right, I'll play right wing then. Those contact lens situation has done my head in, to be fair. So bench him. And then 100. Yeah, I'm with you on the two. If I see Pedro and Ruta, the experiment ever again, I won't watch. I'm just going to turn off there and then.
I mean, Hertzler said he would do it again. So
I know, yeah. Imagine he whacked out this week. That would be criminal. The fans would turn. So I reckon he would come out and everyone would boo in the stadium. I want you to lead the booing chant if he actually does that. Goes with Hinchelwood, Ruta, and Pedro as our 3 in midfield. That would be. We'd die. I think we'd concede 10, let alone 7. Concede 7 against Nottingham Forest. You concede 10 against Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson. I think he'll start. And then I reckon, I don't know whether Igor's back or not. I want to see Igor again. I know.
we are so desperate for centre-backs. I mean, at the start of the season, we put Igor so far away from that starting 11. He was like on par with Adam Webster. How have we got to February and we've passed the window as well? And I'm hearing, I want to see Igor. Oh.
Because it's just how bad Dunk and Webster are. I can't see Webster again. Surely not. One thing I'm actually going to change that. Give Aaron Cashin a little run out. That'll be a good welcome.
Is he not cup tied though? He might be cup tied.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point actually. That's tough. Okay, so and we don't have McConville, your guy, so we're gonna have to go with Eagle then. Screw it, throw him in.
But you know, in your deepest of hearts, you know it's going to be Lewis Dunk.
Of course, I know it's going to be. It's 100% Lewis Dunk. He's the first name on the team sheet, probably. It's madness, absolute madness that's the case in 2025. And then some other mentions, like you say, the 2 in midfield. I think it has to be Belieber and Ayari if they're fit, but if they aren't, O'Reilly was the only one that looked slightly promising when he came on last weekend, and I think give Gomez another run out. Put them 2 in midfield with Pedro in front of them.
I don't know. Gomez looked well off it, and you keep saying O'Reilly looked all right. What he
did nothing.
He lost the ball for the 6th goal. You say?
Yeah, he did do that, but
But he looks all right. It was brilliant.
The other parts of the game were fine. Okay. It wasn't too bad. Those are the changes I would make. And you got to give Gomez, that was his first chance. That was his first game. We're already 3-0 down. You got to give him, some belief and some hope.
What a way to make your debut.
Yeah, well, I know. Not great. He probably doesn't fit. The worst thing is we were 3-0 at half time and he ended it on 4-0 technically for his half. That's tough.
That's so tough.
The goals weren't, only one of them he lost the ball. So one of them was his fault. The other ones weren't. I'm really not doing a good job of sticking up for our players.
Yeah, you're not.
So I'll sidetrack that. How do we beat Chelsea then, Bless? Final question.
Again, all these things when we sort of address how we beat them, it all just sounds really obvious. But I think we need to start on the front foot because Chelsea take a little while to settle, I think, and sometimes they sort of sleepwalk into just massacres, like the West Ham game, which was on this week.
Yeah.
They started well, but they didn't really press on early on, and West Ham just need to survive a little bit and wait for a mistake. It might have to be a sort of back to the wall performance at times, but we also need to be brave enough to just change that and step forward and find the right moments to press, because if they rotate in goal, Rob Sanchez coming back to the Amex, it's going to be a tough day for him. I imagine they won't, but if they do, I mean, that would be the worst decision Enzo Maresca will ever make. But got to press him. Even Jorgensen, to be fair, press him. Get in amongst them. We need better hold-up play from Welbeck. We need João Pedro to, actually start kicking on, find that stardust again in those pockets. You can definitely get at Caicedo. He hasn't really played, back-to-back games like that for which are close together. So there's definitely opportunities to get at him as well. And Reece James in right back as well. He's just come back from injury. Get at him.
Yeah, that's the Reece James one against West Ham. I saw him get outpaced by Carlos Soler. Carlos Soler knocked the ball past him, did the Gareth Bale way, ran off the pitch, and still managed to get to the ball in front of Reece James. I think that really shows the rustiness and potentially the injury still hindering Reece James a little bit. So I think he can actually be got at. And like you say, the mistake is there with Chelsea. Levi Colwill gave Jared Bowen his the first goal for West Ham when they played on Monday. So these mistakes are there, and we can capitalise on. And I feel like Chelsea are, going back to the West Ham game, they were really slow in the first half of building it up, and it took that just one mistake and Bowen was in, and they constantly kept on pouncing on them in the first half. It's a much better second half for Chelsea in that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, also Jorgensen looked a bit shaky here and there, in terms of catches, in terms of on the ball. So yeah, definitely need to press him. And one thing I want to see from us and our players specifically is the Danny Welbeck and João Pedro link-up play and combination just hasn't been there since
that died.
Danny Welbeck came back.
Yeah, I was just saying that completely died. It's just it was lethal at the start. It felt like, and they've just it's like they've come back and it's two different people now, and they don't actually understand each other.
They don't know each other. They're playing like they've never met. Yeah, that's actually so true. I think it was probably João Pedro. João Pedro got injured for 3 games at the start when they were on such a high and they were basically on the same page, singing the same hymn sheet. And then suddenly João Pedro gets injured. Ruta fills into that spot perfectly, and Danny Welbeck and him have a good connection. And then it's Danny Welbeck gets injured. We still get some performances, but since they've all been back in the same team together, I think they've played one good game as a cohesive unit. The rest of the time, it's been so mediocre. They lose the ball so easily, and they're not just flowing like they were at the beginning of the season. So I need to see that come back, and that's all I'm calling for.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And another thing as well, I forgot to mention in terms of formation as well. Just back on that point we were talking about, having an actual midfield this time round. The way Chelsea play with inverting the fullback means they've got a box in midfield, and they've got the wingers, and they've got a striker. So they're trying to overload the middle area. If we are empty in those areas, my lord, it's going to be a bad day.
But fingers crossed, it's not. And bless, final note, give me your score prediction.
Smash and grab, 1-0, Brighton.
Remember my New Year's resolution? I'm going to stop being such an optimist. 2-0 Chelsea. And on that note, it's time to go. Everyone follow us on our socials. Keep tuning into our podcast, and we will see you next time. Peace out.
Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.